to post later on in the month. And so how the format goes with these live streams is I'll bring a game to talk about my favorite content in the game, what mechanics are my favorite, and we'll move into adding a random mechanic into that game, and then we'll finish off with a 5-minute brainstorm. So let's set up for video number 1. Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam, and in today's video, we are going to be talking about the board game Obsession, and we'll be discussing my favorite mechanics in the game. So this won't be a full rules teach of the game. I'll link in the description below a rules overview and playthrough that I find to be very insightful in case you're looking to learn more about the game to see if it's a game for you or not. But today I'm going to focus on the mechanic of how the tiles, cards, and workers intertwine together in this game. And so the overview of Obsession is that you are sort of that Downton Abbey style family looking to solidify your prestige within the community by arranging marriages and setting up different events to have to be the most popular family. And so it's played over a series of rounds, and on your turn, everyone has a little player board like this. You're going to select one of your event tiles to take place. And so everyone starts with 5 of the same events, and they are double-sided tiles. And each event tells you how many guests can be part of it, what type of workers are needed to activate the event, and then it will also show you a benefit that you'll receive from holding that event. So you'll select one of the events as the activity for your turn. To go along with that, you'll also be playing cards from your hand which represent the different guests and people within your family and that you've had over to your estate to that have the potential to be part of this event. And then you also have these different worker meeples that there's all different types that can be used to assist different people and host different events. And so those are the 3 different parts that you are trying to balance on your turn. And so how a turn would work is if we chose to do the Bowling Green event, it allows 2 gentry to be part of this event. So say we had Mr. Walters and Mr. Wadsworth. We chose to have these 2 attend the Bowling Green event. We have to look at the bottom corner and we see that we need 1 valet for him to be part of the event. And so we would need a valet and a footsman to be able to satisfy the requirements to play all these things, because the event needs a footsman and Mr. Wadsworth needs a valet. And to know if we have those available is if you look at the bottom of each player board, this will show you what workers you have available each round. And so say those were in our available service space, we would expend those workers, putting them in the expended space there. And we would then gain the benefits of not only Mr. Walters, but also Mr. Wadsworth and the event reward as well. So in that turn, we would gain $300, or I don't know what the currency term is for them. We would get a level 1 guest. We'd also gain 1 prestige, and then we would have the option to either gain $100 more or gain an additional prestige. And so you're balancing these because once cards are played from your hand, those guests won't come back to your hand until you've passed. When you've taken the action on different events, they'll flip over, becoming slightly less powerful as you take them, but will be getting you more victory points at the end of the game. And the staff that worked the event will go into your expended area, and then when it's your next turn happens, they'll shift into the servants' quarters. So not all of your staff will be available at any given round or any given turn, which this whole puzzle of figuring out which tiles you want to play to get the rewards to flip, coupled with which guests and family members you want to play from your hand, because and balancing the cycle of what workers you have available or not, is a really fun puzzle in Obsession that is what draws me to the game a ton. That sounded weird, but that's what really draws me to the game. And so I think that's the main thing I want to focus on in this video, because that whole puzzle and the way that those all intertwine together, because the workers not only are needed for your cards, but also the tiles you play, and having enough money to buy different additional event tiles that'll give you bigger bonuses later on, coupled with starting to earn enough prestige where you can start to play these guests that require you to have a higher reputation to be able to play. I guess all these are one, but in the level 2 prestige guests, they'll have a little number up here that shows you how much reputation you have to have for them to even be able to hang with you. So that whole puzzle is really fascinating to me, and that's my favorite part of Obsession. Comment down below what your favorite parts are of Obsession. I find the game to be very enjoyable, and if you like this style of content, feel free to subscribe. I post my favorite mechanic videos every Monday. Have a good one. All right, well, so we stumbled through that one. So next we have adding a mechanic to Obsession. So I'll push these off here, and we will set up for that. That's good. All right, we're good. So we are ready for video number 2. We'll get some water. Maybe some water will help us so we don't stumble over our words continuously. Got a little cheat sheet too, so that we can call all of the items the right word. All right. Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam, and in today's video, we are going to be taking the board game Obsession and adding a random game mechanic into it. And so how this works, if you're new to these style of videos, is we will switch over to our screen here. And if you look in, oh no, we're no longer screen sharing. 1 second. All right, we're back. So how these videos work, we'll just start from the top, because that was, I think I'm also gonna mirror my camera. Nope, we didn't want to do that. We'll try it again. Getting there. All right, we're back. So now we should be able to read everything that we mimic. All right, we'll lock that and start over. Double check that we're still screen sharing. All right, boom, take 2. Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam, and in today's video, we are going to be taking the game Obsession, and we're going to be adding a random game mechanic into it based off of our wheel of game mechanics. So if we switch screens really quick, you can see in the top right of the screen, we have our picker wheel, and it's got 60 different game mechanics pulled from BGG, Board Game Geek. And what we're going to do is we're going to spin this wheel, and whatever mechanic it lands on, if we're going to make sure that it doesn't already exist in the game Obsession. Constrained bidding. So there is I don't know if it's bidding per se, but in the game there are 2 character cards that you're vying for attention. There's the Fairchilds. The 2 Fairchilds are sort of, you're kind of trying to win favor over them. So I don't know if that's exactly bidding, but we'll go with it. All right. So our challenge today is to figure out a way to add constrained bidding into obsession. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set our phone onto a 5-minute timer to give us our time limit for this brainstorming activity. Where's the timer? There's the timer. Boom. All right. So constrained bidding, in my interpretation of the mechanic, is that there is a fixed limit to the money or currency or whatever you're bidding with. There's a fixed amount. And so that a game like QE, for example, or silent auctions, there's technically no limit to what you can bid. So it's just trying to bid up. In a constrained bidding setting, it'd be something like everyone has $20 maximum or something like that. And supposedly there would be a few rounds. So a good example of this would be potentially for sale, where everyone starts with, depending on player count, anywhere from like 18 or 14 to $18, something like that, where you have to make that money last between rounds. And so for, why is our screen not updating with my writing on it? All right, there we go. And so in Obsession, to start the game, everyone is randomly dealt a character card to add into their hand as their first guest to start the game for the asymmetrical ability, the asymmetricalness. That's not a, exquisite word. It's not a $5 word, but that's the word I'll go with. So, to add asymmetricalness to the start of the game, everyone gets a random level 1 prestige guest. And to add constrained bidding, I would say that each person starts with, say, 600 monies. And so each money is, what do they call them? That just says Victoria. Pounds, I don't know. But each one of these represents 100, and so it's in the base values of hundreds in the game for currency. So we'll say that everyone starts with 600 before the game, and there would be, say, depending on player count, there would be an equal number of guests dealt to face up on the table to start the game. And we'll go back to that. And so say we're playing a 3-player game, there would be 3 guests that you can sort of bribe to be at your establishment at the start of the game. And so you'll start with the first guest, so it'll be kind of a queue where everyone will bid on this one first, this one second, this one third. And how bidding would work is I would probably borrow the constrained bidding concept from For Sale, where you lose if you don't win the bid, you lose half of whatever you had bid. So for the first round, say the first person bids 2 on this, and then the second person bids 300, and then the third person bids 400 because they really want this character. Each of these first bids would lose $100, but would still not have to pay the full, so that would be 100, and we'll do the round up method. So this person would lose 200, and then this person would pay the full 400. And so that would be how I'd pretend. And then obviously, not obviously, but after that one is bid for it, then you move on to the second and third to basically bribe the starting guests to come be part of your family and help with your reputation. And so we have 46 seconds left on the timer, so I'm going to pause it there. And so to recap, our challenge today was to add constrained bidding into the board game Obsession. And how we did that is the rules that we changed in the setup of the game is instead of randomly dealing out a guest card to each player, you would give each player 600 coin to start the game. And so then you would deal out the number of guests equal to the number of players playing the game. And you would go from left to right bidding on which characters you want to start with. And so any leftover money would be your starting money for the game. And so that would be how I'd add constrained bidding into the game Obsession. And so from just a thought experiment of how we test this, is I would explain just what we went over the next time we played Obsession to see if anyone playing Obsession with us, or with myself, or me, wanted to try this method out. From a thinking it through, my assumption would be that whoever is the first player would bid and the next two people would pass, and it would be a pass, pass, pass where you just still take the random cards. So I don't think this would be a way that it would enhance the game, and I don't think it would be a mechanic necessarily that would actually work. But for the sake of this thought experiment, that's what we came up with. I'd love to know if you came up with anything better in the comments below. So feel free to comment if you have a better idea of how to add constrained bidding to the game Obsession. I hope to hear from you soon. Video number 2 down. We mirrored the camera to help with editing and uploading because we want people to be able to read what we're throwing up. And I found that flipping it post-editing, I don't go slow enough in these videos for it to work. So we're going to have to get used to just looking at our mirrored self. All right, so we are done with that. So to finish off, those are all level 1s. We will put Obsession away, or at least put it off to the side. And then we'll finish with our 5-minute brainstorm. We'll fully put it away after. All right, so we'll set up for the last video, get some more water down the gullet, and begin. Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam, and in today's video, we are going to be designing a game concept off of a prompt in 5 minutes or less. So if you're new to these style of videos, that's okay. I'll go over what we do. So if we pull up our screen here, we like to use the game prompt from the website letsmakeagame.net, and they have a really powerful tool called the game idea generator. And so I think it's powerful because it gives you something that you have to go off of without you having to think of it yourself. And so in this challenge, we will generate a prompt for us, which will give us a genre, rule, setting, and theme for us to design around. And then we will give ourselves a 5-minute time limit to ideate around. And after the timer goes off, we will update and kind of solidify where we got to with this concept and talk about the steps that we would need to take to move it forward to bring it to a testable state. And we will wrap up by kind of expressing whether we think that we ended with a concept that is worth pursuing or not. So with that all out of the way, let's generate our prompt. So for our prompt, our genre we got was a side scroller. Our rule is 1 minute. The setting is high fantasy and the theme is survival. All right, let's try that out. So we will set our clock to 5 minutes and begin. So side scroller, I've kind of used this board theme before, but we'll start with what we know. And so I'm thinking of sort of, you have different, everyone has a different personal player board that has 5 sections, and you have so you have that. We'll make that a little smaller. And I'm sort of not giving great audio right now to allow my brain to think. But you have that player board, and then potentially each board itself has a few platforms. So each board would be maybe randomly. There would be 5 sections to each board. And the knowns would be, there'd be 2 to 3 platforms on each side. And we would have our, so there'd be 2 sections. Everyone would have their own player board, or their character board and their side scroller board. And so you have your little character token to start the game that would start in on your center tile within this side scrolling platform. And so I think that the 1 minute challenge it'd be a real-time style game. And sort of what I'm thinking for the character board is that you have maybe 4 action tiles that you have spent, so you have 4 action tiles, and so each one has a different cost associated to it. There's an idea in my head. Let's see if I can talk through it well. But there'd be a cost, and so we'll do a zoomed out or zoomed in view of what one of these tiles might look like. And so you have the cost to perform it down here, and this has some sort of movement ability and then a expending ability. So this would just be a directional that you could perform, and that might be it. So in a side scroller, this is kind of going to be a stream of consciousness at this point, but the 2 movements that you care about are up, over, jump up, and jump down. And so if we're trying to survive, at the end of each round, these will shift and you'll get a new tile drawn randomly from a stack or something like that. And so there'll be this ever scrolling kind of movement up here, and the goal of the game is to keep your character pawn on the map, and the last person standing gets to do that. And so my initial thought is that each tile has a basic movement that you can perform, and the bottom action of the tile would be like a special power, but we won't, for this 5-minute challenge, we won't worry about the special powers. And so the core concept would be that you have each of these movements laid out to perform. And so basically the core loop of the game would be that on each, you have to flip them in order, and before you can, so like once it's used once, you have to use every other tile before you can use that one again. And so once all 4 tiles have been flipped, they reset. And so we'll stop that there. So we'll finish this thought and wrap up what we need to do to make this playable. Because the mind block that I had in this challenge was how to make the 1 minute challenge. So if we ignore the rule of the 1 minute, what we've come up with is sort of a concept for a side scroller survival game. And so there would be, everyone would start the game with 5. Oh, we lost connection. All right. Let me try. So we've lost connection, so we'll just switch back to the screen. So our challenge was to come up with a game in 5 minutes or less for the prompt of side scroller, 1 minute, high fantasy and survival. And so what we came up with is that everyone would get a board that has 5 sections in it, and each of those sections have different platforms for you to continue to move and survive, like not fall off the map on. And so at the end of each round, the 4 will shift and a new one will be played in like lieu of the one that's discarded. So you'll always have 5 sections of your side-scrolling map to survive on. And I'm going to take 2 seconds to actually try and re-screen share because it'll be easier to talk through this. All right, back up and running. So let's switch cameras again. All right, we'll do a hard cut and then. Sorry about that, the screen cut out, so we're back and live. And so to recap, our challenge was to come up with a game concept in 5 minutes that was based off the prompt of a side-scroller 1-minute high fantasy survival prompt. And so what we came up with is there would be this rotating conveyor belt board up here that you would have your little meeple starting in the middle. And the goal of the game is to be the last one to have their meeple on this side scroller. And so how you survive is you, after every round, this will shift down and there'll be a new tile placed in the front. And so that takes care of our side scroller element. And so how you move around it, we came up with the concept of that there's 4 tiles that you have to flip all 4 of them before they can reset. And so the 4 movements you have are just over, you have up, you have over up, and then you have over down. And so that is where we got to in the 5 minutes. And so the next steps that we still have to take are figuring out what the penalty is. So like if we have our setup like this, this would clearly have to be an up. This would have to be an over up. And what would the penalty be if we just went over and then fell? I don't know if there's a set amount of damage that you can take or not. But that is the core loop of what we came up with. So we'd have to figure out actually, I'd probably just make a bunch of randomly generated tiles like this and say that ignore the 1 minute rule challenge right now. So I'd come up with maybe 13 or something different platform setups, and I would have these 4 different arrow tiles that I'd make, and I'd just try this out solo, where after I flip each tile, I would get a new, the core loop I'd do is I would flip and then shift and see how long I could survive with the rules of you can't flip the tiles back over until you've used all of them. And I would see if that creates an infinite loop or not, to see if this concept even makes sense to add into a game. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you came up with this prompt in the comments below. And if you like this style of content, I post these videos every Friday, so please subscribe. I think I'm going to call it there because I don't know if this idea is good or not, but that's okay. Not every day comes up with a good idea. The whole goal of this is to just get into the practice of working the brain muscles. So with that, I'm going to end the screen, and I hope